Now, the period of uncertainty in the global economy. So this relates to also the issue of debt ceiling and quantitative easing in the United States, the controversy surrounding austerity measures in Europe, and the uncertainty and of course relatively more sluggish growth in China. So we have estimated growth scenario for 2014 at 5.2%. The more issue of great concern is the issue of deficit. For the year 2014, an expected figure is 34 billion ringgit, just 3.2% of GDP. And this is very disconcerting because this figure is of course much higher in the BN budget and projection, and the failure to deal with the issue of deficit in a responsible manner. So the measures that we take and the thrust of our economic policy and budget for next year by Pakatan Rakyat would be the issue of governance, issue of a responsible fiscal policy, and to ensure that we deal with the issues of wastage and leakages that is bleeding the funds. Second is to ensure a balanced, inclusive and sustainable growth. And the third is of course the issue of quality of life for Malaysians. Oh, any direct translation? No easy. Now, our concern is of course on the issue of the imminent sovereign downgrade, and because of the failure of the government to resolve this, to deal with this, and to take a more realistic measure to deal with the issue of deficit. Now, to ensure more efficient and transparent management of spending, then we will have to propose a 10% reduction in terms of operating costs in most ministries. And this can be done if you look at the massive wastage and leakages. There's something which is realistic. And then to decide on spending priority. The PLKN, for example, that's costing us 800 million ringgit a year, can be scrapped as a moratorium for next year, and subject to the Parliamentary Select Committee to then make the necessary recommendations. That means a saving of 800 million ringgit or somewhat a bit less. And as I alluded to earlier, making reference to the Auditor General's report, we can safely estimate a saving of between 20 to 30 billion ringgit based on extrapolation from the figures the audit conducted by the Auditor General. And we have made reference to the excesses and leakages in the Education Ministry, JKR, and also Transport Ministries. GST is of course for us is no go, because you must have measures first to avoid massive wastage, extravagance, corruption. Because if you can save 20-30 billion ringgit, why do you then impose hardship to the masses, to the people? We can only consider, if at all, any sort of tax reform measure after we have exhausted all other avenues, which means to stop wastage and corruption. Now, the BN proposal is to punish the people first not the corrupt. Of course, we are introducing, we propose to introduce real property gains tax, because this is something familiar and this would not be a burden to the people. Only when you dispose of a major property, then we tax on the massive profit that you have accrued in the process. And then of course other aspects which would include Pen Borneo Highway, cabotage for Sabah Sarawak, and ensuring that basic requirements and amenities for the rural poor or the urban squatters, particularly in Sabah and Sarawak, be dealt with as an emergency measure. And I think I commend the Penang state government and Selangor, because Penang have made it clear that on the issue of abject grinding poverty be dealt with and should not postpone that sort of a program. And I think this can be posed at the national level by the Pakatan, according to the Pakatan Rakyat proposal. And then of course for women in national development, we have proposed 1,200 ringgit for working mothers to assist them in catering for welfare of their children under 12, and 3 billion ringgit for scheme Caruman Wanita Nasional. I think that's sufficient for a summary. And then for your summary in English, you have your text in English. I don't have a text in English.
Yeah, translation, yes.
Okay. Okay. Alright, now we will distribute the text later, I mean the combined text, and then and the detailed submission will be done in 3 days, because in the past when we did it a week earlier, most of the measures are stolen by the BN government in the Najib budget without making the acknowledgements. I wouldn't mind if he takes some of it and say thanking the Pakatan Rakyat for their proposal, and I'm now incorporating it in my national budget. But since he did not do that, we feel that it is not probably proper, unless he meant to actually seriously implement it. Issue of good governance, your programs, as we have seen, this is just a political gimmick with no serious effort to ensure the implementation, particularly on the issue of good governance and transparency. Terima kasih.